Okay, I will begin by showing my note cards. Today I'd like to explain to you how the increased use of technology has affected our ability to communicate with others face to face. 1 second. Okay. As I just demonstrated, texting can be a major distractor when you're trying to effectively portray a message to other people. It can come off as rude and unprofessional when people appear to be consumed in technology, such as their phones, when they're trying to have an effective conversation with someone face to face. Technology appears to be a major impairment to our communication skills, but people still choose to use it. According to the Northern Iowan editorial staff, in their 2010 article, "Is Technology Harming Our Communication Skills?" Our society is so dependent on technology that it is almost impossible to maintain a work and social life without it. Therefore, this should be an important aspect in all of our lives. I'm sure the majority of you have tried to have an important conversation with someone through texting and email, and had your words twisted around or taken the wrong way. This results in miscommunication and misunderstandings. These people cannot read your nonverbal cues or hear your tone of voice, so they cannot always catch on to sarcasm. Today I would like to explain to you why effective communication is important, why other forms of communication can be misleading, and ultimately why face-to-face communication is ideal. Let me begin by explaining why effective communication is important. Everyone needs communication in their lives to pass on important messages to other people. I attended a 2013 Child, Youth, and Family Science lecture by Melissa Olson on communication and conflict resolution at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. This demonstrated how, without proper communication, people cannot have as meaningful relationships or cannot express themselves as well to other people around them. Melissa Olson went into detail about how the message sent is not always the message received, especially when you're not talking face to face. Messages contain a lot of content and relationship information. Also, when you have incongruency between verbal and nonverbal cues, it can be very problematic because you cannot have an in-depth conversation if you cannot hear as well as read what other people are trying to portray to you. The American Society of Clinical Oncology explained in their 2007 article, "Developing Effective Communication Skills," that in order to have effective communication, you need to be an active listener as well as be attuned to body language. You cannot pay attention to these two important aspects of a conversation if you're not speaking in person, which could also lead to issues. Now that you understand why communication is important, we'll discuss why other forms of communication can be misleading, causing the message to be distorted or not as genuine as it would be if people were speaking in person. Miles Liados wrote in his 2013 article, "Out of Control, How We're Isolating Ourselves by Texting," that texting appears to be our primary choice of communication because it gives people more control. In 2010, 188 billion texts were reported to be sent in the United States, whereas in 2000 it was 14 billion texts that were reported to be sent. If you take a look at this graph, according to this 2011 survey, about 50% of the population reported to be using their phone at least 4 times per day, and a little over 20% of the population reported to be using their phone at least daily. Communication through technology can be misleading because it gives people more control so that they can think through their responses, and that way they can have people perceive them the way that they want to be perceived. This can be misleading because it is hard to tell when you can't see people's nonverbal cues if they are pretending to be someone that they really are not. Next, we'll discuss how people need to realize that without nonverbal cues, your message is not being portrayed the way it should be, which is why face-to-face communication appears to be ideal. In the 2008 Wall Street Journal article, The Power of Nonverbal Cues, Dr. Pentland and his colleagues discussed their studies done on the autonomic nervous system and nonverbal cues. These show that nonverbal cues are honest signals that are hard to fake, and they reveal a lot of important information about the relationship between the two people and the activity that's taking place between them. Charles W. Bryant posts on how effective is nonverbal communication stated that the words that people speak are actually only a small contributor to what is actually being said. What's more important is eye contact, hand gestures, posture, voice, and eye contact. If you take a look at these two pictures, you can tell that this woman is not really paying attention to the man because she's not making eye contact and she appears to be spacing off. Whereas in this picture, both people are making eye contact, the man's using hand gestures, which makes it seem like both people are engaged in the conversation. However, if you were speaking through the phone, you would not be able to tell if someone's actually paying attention to you or not. According to the 2011 textbook Communication, Making Connections by William Seeler and Melissa Beal, nonverbal communication carries the most meaning of the message. It reveals your attitudes towards others and your feelings. It is also more spontaneous and unintentional, which makes it seem to be more believable than verbal communication. Now that you have heard the reasons why it is essential for people to learn communication so that they can have effective everyday encounters, you can see that all this cannot be accomplished unless you can read other people's nonverbal cues. Albert Einstein once said, I fear the day that technology surpasses human interaction, for we will have a generation of idiots. Next time you walk through campus, I'd like you to take a look around and pay attention to how many people are consumed in their phones. I have noticed that people do not even make eye contact with other people, and for the most part, they do not try to have actual conversations with those around them. Communication is very important in our everyday lives, but due to people relying more on technology than their own communication skills, it appears that maybe the day Albert Einstein feared may be among us. When people use other forms of communication besides face-to-face communications, it can be deceiving. As students become aware that this is an issue and take action by learning proper communication skills, they would be able to have more productive conversations and be able to successfully express themselves to those around them. So next time you're about ready to type up an email or send a text, stop and ask yourself if you can effectively get your message across, or if it would be more efficient to wait and actually confront the person.